While I'm opposed to Hindutva, and this video aims to provide constructive criticism to those opposing Hindutva, it does not oppose the individual right to freedom of religion or the lack of it. I am opposed to identity politics of any kind, particularly of the sort that busies itself with criticizing other identities rather than improving the lives of those it claims to represent. I believe that the progress of India as a country lies in improving the capability of our citizens to think, to add skills and resources for knowledge and productivity, and above all, to encourage creativity and kindness. Ideological war in India. There's an ideological war in India that's older than the country itself. And I will make a separate video about it. But for the purposes of the situation in the country today, the war is broadly between Hindutva and everybody else. The everybody else tend to call themselves secular, liberal, or the left, none of which mean much, as you will soon see. They're just terms adopted by people to indicate an anti-Hindutva stand. Hindutva, in terms of meaning, is the essence of being Hindu. Politically, it is Hindu nationalism and considers Hindus to be the true citizens of India, while other religious identities would be secondary citizens. Secularism is the separation of religion and state. Essentially, it means that public life and spaces must treat citizens equally, regardless of religion. Therefore, logically, it follows that it should be simple to get two people to agree that two human beings should be equal. Yet there seems to be a catastrophic failure of logic in India. And we see Hindu nationalism have growing supporters and undermining democracy. For practical purposes, we already see it manifest as increased threat against Muslims. Left uninterrupted, it won't be long before the constitution is just a token document or replaced altogether, at which point even the Dalits will be at threat. Dysfunctional secularism serves Hindutva. Secularism in India is broken by design. Where secularism should be the separation of religion and state, we adopt an approach of humoring all religions equally, which in practice, particularly as majority Hindus get more aggressive, translates into humoring minority religions. This in turn alienates a large part of the population by making them feel accused. It comes with a great halo of justice, but in reality uses injustice as an excuse to perpetrate its own brand of prejudice. Additionally, there's a lack of clear ideology that is congruent with an identity. To be clear, neither Hindutva nor secularism offer anything good to people politically. The only difference is that one wants to harm a significant chunk of the population, while the other does not want it to harm a significant chunk of the population. For the common man, who's neither a perpetrator nor a target, neither offer anything constructive. Still, Hindutva offers them dignity from the unfair accusations made against them. Why this is so? The reasons for this are many, but on a very simplistic level, may be summarized as secularism not being secular in India, and Hindu nationalism concealing itself as Hindu representation. Both of which are problems, but only one of which is something we can change, because the other is a feature and not a bug. Hindutva wants to pretend to represent all Hindus. So, of course, they don't want to change it. Whereas secularism needs to find a way to reach all Indians. The entry fee. The anti-Hindutva people in India are a mix of Muslims, Dalits, feminists, and those who support them. The problem with this is that there is no clear central identity that stands for the rights of everyone. This is not a surprise, since each of them have their own areas of focus and all of them criticize the social norm. So, to be anti-BJP and feel represented, you have to educate yourself on one or more of these three to see what you agree with. And unless you belong to that identity, your interest will still remain unrepresented. And your identity will still be oppressor, privileged, and so on. So essentially, for most garden variety Hindus, there's literally no one interested in speaking up for them, other than BJP, who wants to speak for all Hindus. Actually, BJP doesn't do much representing of anybody's rights, more like scams them. But at least BJP or Hindutva is never ever going to demonize them. They are never going to be called oppressors or a sexist society or Islamophobic for simply existing and going about their lives. That right there is why anti Hindutva fails in India. The majority of people don't even need to think much. There's just one option that acts superior and demonizes them, and another that doesn't. Guess which one wins the polls? Inequality versus discrimination, which the inability of activists to distinguish between a disadvantage and intentional harm. Just as it is irrational to hate today's Muslims for the Mughal invasions, it is irrational to hate today's Hindus for historic inequality. Did their ancestors perpetrate injustices? Probably. But you cannot blame them for something they did not do. Better education and jobs among upper castes is not discrimination. Upper castes have had a head start on a lot of developmental parameters. This does not mean that every person from an upper caste today intends Dalits' harms. Even if they wear janeus and marry among their caste and so on, that's just their normal lives. And I'm pretty sure Dalits have their practices and tend to marry within their caste and culture as well. Discrimination is the result of intentional actions, like separate canteens in colleges, or denying jobs on the basis of caste, or when crimes against them are perpetrated and go unpunished, or when there are organized attempts to strangle the Muslims financially, or to keep Dalits out of temples. It would be far easier to punish malicious acts if people in general weren't demonized as oppressors and alienated. Lazy activism. Similarly, when secularism means demonizing Hindus and their beliefs, but doing the same for Muslims is hate speech. It may be punching up and thus fair game. I'm an atheist, I don't care. But you aren't going to get the bulk of the people agreeing that the country should be ruled by thoughts like these. The lack of clear goals. The overall trend in activism is criticism. It is easy to memorize a set of faults in an identity and trot them out to look smart and pretend to be educating society about problems. Alternatively, to defend people based on their identity rather than actions. This kind of lazy activism is very similar to Hindutva in the sense of giving people someone to blame or hate, but not actually doing a whole lot to improve lives. It is also unending, since the blame is assigned to an identity rather than a finite issue or crime. So there is no possibility of concrete achievement, because there's no possibility of success, since nothing is visualized as success. We need actionable goals, like we will help with the prosecution of discrimination and support people in filing cases in court XYZ. This is our helpline number. Or we have Hindu volunteers willing to support minorities at threat of violence in places A, B, and C. People are in real danger today. We need more united action, less divisiveness, less differences over things that don't matter as much. And really the bottom line right now is this person saying this or wearing a janeu or doing whatever he does worse than an actual human being injured or killed? If it is not, shut up. That is the stage we are at right now. Without an actionable goal, all that is achieved is alienation of everyone who want to educate themselves to the narcissistic standards of the self-proclaimed priests of causes. It is like activists select for extremely high standards to include among themselves and send the bulk of those they encounter to Hindutva. If the masses can't understand you, no matter how refined the thought, it is counterproductive. The jargon-laden hyper-nuancing that makes people feel smart also defeats them. Great for sounding intellectually superior, but if it actually reflected the problems and needs of the people, Hindutva wouldn't be winning. But arrogance leaves no room for introspection. Lack of a good sales pitch. There simply isn't enough explaining any of the anti-Hindutva goals in positive terms. In the sense of we stand for this. This is why it is a good idea and why you should adopt it. Hindutva does this. There is a robust debate with people who disagree and attempts to explain and convince why they should support. How many anti-BJP people repeatedly and patiently engage with disagreement? I do, and I know it works. I rarely get abused, even though I'm consistently critical of the government and Hindutva and use far less polite language than most people. People often educate themselves on propaganda, and when you can intrigue them with unpredictable perspectives and new information, instead of hating them for having a view, often it encourages them to think deeper. The more nuanced a person's thoughts are, the less likely they are to choose extremism. And yet, the most common response to disagreement is condemnation and accusations. It doesn't matter if A hates B or B hates A, if the end result is a divide. Those who believe in secularism must get in the business of bridge construction. Whose responsibility is secularism? It is a question worth thinking about. Once secularism was an important part of the national integration agenda. Films, songs, educational content actively explained to people why democracy and secularism were so great. The activists, opposition politicians, and assorted other anti Hindutva folks are all private citizens and can't be forced to take any particular action. Who then can we count on to deliver the secularism that we expect? The simple answer is no one. And it shows. It may be present in the constitution, but it's an orphaned goal. What can be done? I think we need a unifying common ideology, something the masses can understand and respect easily that does not favor any identity over another and is profound enough for philosophers to dig in deeper and deeper. My preference would be ahimsa, non-violence. The word is embedded into the conscience of the nation due to Gandhi. It has Sanskrit origins without religious connotation, so will be very noble and acceptable and admirable to Hindus. It is also necessary in today's times of both physical and mental violence. Do comment if you like the idea. Engage, engage, engage. If you believe in something, don't take the lazy route and spend your days criticizing. Share why you believe in it, what is good about it, how it benefits the world, how it improves society. Talk about people who inspire you and why. Come up with creative ideas to improve lives. Remember, much of Hindutva doesn't spread on hate. It spreads on forwards about the greatness of Hindu stuff from recipes to temples. There is extensive social work. Why do you feel entitled to agreement without selling anyone on your idea? If anyone disagrees, hear them out. Present your own arguments. You can always agree to disagree and give up later, but you cannot make a discussion that never happened manifest. Become an ambassador for your beliefs rather than a critic of those who don't believe things you do. I'm planning to make a video with more specific actionable points soon, but I think for now this would be a fair start. If you have great ideas, please leave them in the comments and I will definitely try and include them in that video. We need all the great ideas we can get now.